are heroes if there's no bad guys around to beat up or no supreme evil to defeat? Nothing! Bunch of lazy, no-good freeloaders. Get a job, you bums! As the saying goes, a hero is only as good as his villain. Therefore, by that logic, and continuing with Final Fantasy month, I'm here to count down my 10 favorite villains in the entire franchise. Mind you, I'll also take into account some villains from the few side games and spin-offs I've played, and as per usual, the same rules of one per franchise and only from games I've played are still in effect here. Oh, and a quick reminder here.
Obvious spoilerific spoiler alerts.
I will be discussing certain aspects that will spoil you if you haven't played a certain game yet. You have been duly warned. Now, cut the chit-chatting and more bad guy fighting. Huh! Remember the villain from Final Fantasy IV? Yeah, Zemas is a total dud when it comes to being a villain. And that's why the series only focused on awesome villains. Though I would have been more than happy if Seymour had made it into the roster. Oh well. And that's why Golbez is starting off this list. You will be hating this guy's guts from the very moment he sets foot on the screen. But you'll end up loving him by the end of Final Fantasy IV. For you see, in Final Fantasy IV, he plays with everyone's emotions and secretly rules the throne of Baron Castle. And as such, he is single-handedly responsible for Cecil's defection and setting off the whole game into motion. Golbez affects almost every single member of your party on a personal level, either by taking something precious from them or just outright killing a character in cold blood. There are very few bosses that are routinely in your face about their schemes throughout the entirety of a whole adventure. But Golbez takes this to heart and actually sticks by this till the very end. His reasonings and actions become more interesting, tragic even. He turns himself into a sympathetic villain. That is, of course, if you can overlook all the pain and misery unleashed. Oh, who am I kidding? I can't stay mad at you, you little killer, you! The fact still remains. He was used just as much as everyone else was. In the short time that he was brainwashed, Golbez may have not destroyed the world, but in 20 short game hours, he managed to wreck the stuffing out of the personal lives of your entire group, sent dozens of innocents to their death, and nearly ushered in a new age of destruction. Damn! Just damn, son!
Now that's impressive!
Need I go on?
No! Yes.
Okay then. For the sake of argument, I'll go on. Really now. Chaos. The effing god of Discord. Insert obligatory My Little Pony reference joke here. Must I really elaborate on how much of an awesome villain he is? Must I?
Get over there!
Fine, jeez. Someone's grumpy today. Anyway, besides being the main antagonist of the Dissidia games, Chaos is equal to power only to Cosmos, the goddess of harmony. But, and that's a big but, he manages to tip the balance of power to his favor by destroying a weakened cosmos. I won't spoil his backstory for those interested, but I gotta say, it's pretty moving and tragic. Though that's exactly why he's so low on this list. Yet, this is what makes him such a complex and interesting character. And though we're given this information through text and whatnot, it just doesn't have the same impact had we seen it unrolled before our eyes. Despite his monstrous yet badass appearance, Caius is always calm and collected, always speaking in an even tone of voice, even to his enemies. And all this composite front of his does is just make him look and sound so freaking menacing. And his voice is just so smooth. Keith David, you just sold this badass motherfucker like no one's business. Now, despite Caius being
The all-powerful Lord of Destruction and Ruin, the bringer of death and misery,
he's actually hesitant to punish the disobedient members of his faction, which comes off as a bit of a surprise, really. It's actually surprising to see a supposed god of discord and ruin being so mellow and not prone to act to his impulses. And arguably it's because of this very attitude that so many of his own warriors turn their backs on him and even plot against him. Even with all that godly power and awe-inspiring final battle and his intimidating presence, his lack of character development can only bring him so high. Oh, I can hear the fanboys raging.
This is unacceptable!
Yes, let the butthurt flow through you, directed at me. Yes. Oh, it's just so tasty. Oh, yes. Feed me. Feed me. Feed me.
Now seriously, as much as I dislike Sephi Boy, I have to admit he definitely has some good points as a villain. His intimidating presence can be felt throughout the entire game like a shadow that lingers over you. And he also plays a bit of a tragic figure. Despite this, his flaws totally outweigh his qualities.
What the hell did you just say?
Let me finish. Because of the inconsistency of character development put into Sephiroth, he feels more like a incomplete villain more than anything else. Besides, aside from the Nibelheim flashback thing, what else did he exactly do? It wasn't him who pulled you around on a leash, chasing what seemed to be him around the world, and it wasn't Sephiroth who put you on a wild goose chase. Heck, he wasn't even the one who killed Aerith. All of these go to the real villain of Final Fantasy VII, Jenova. And this is my real problem with old Sepster here. Up until the final third of the game, he just sits on his cold, comatose ass up in the northern crater, expecting everything to fall into place. And okay, sure, he may have some psychic influence over Jenova herself, or over the robed reunion guys, and even Cloud. But let me ask you this. Up until the point where you gift wrap him the black materia, and even after, when he summons Meteor, what exactly does he do? Oh, that's right, absolutely jack shit. And that's why Sephiroth is sharing this spot with Mommy Dearest.
You son of a bitch.
Hey, it is what it is. Honestly speaking now, if it weren't for the further development that they gave Sephiroth in Crisis Core, this spot would have been reserved solely for Jenova. It was sort of miraculous how Crisis Core took a somewhat shallow villain and managed to give him a proper background and characterization. After that, the whole Nibelheim incident made a lot more impact in this game, and his actions felt a lot more justifiable, relatable even. Add that to him being the indirect hybrid offspring of a planet-destroying alien lifeform that can either assimilate its prey or control them via a biological infection, and it's not hard to imagine the ramifications of Jenova's true powers. And together, these two rocked Gaia like it was never rocked before. Whoa, did I just make a mother-son team look badass? Oh well, might as well just roll with it. Ooh boy, I bet I'm about to be flamed alive because of this entry. Oh well, better take some precautions. Ultimate Flame Shield up! And my pick for this entry is Caius Ballad. Please be excused to present my case before you guys decide to stone me to death? Is that too much to ask? Ow! Son of a bitch! Caius was originally a pulseless seed charged with protecting Yule, the seeress with the power to see into the future, granted by the goddess Etro. But this power sort of worked like a double-edged sword, with the handle made out of freaking blades. In exchange for her foresight, Yule's lifespan was dangerously shortened through her every incarnation. Therefore, Caius, sick of witnessing Yule's death over and over, and as her immortal guardian, took it upon himself to rid her of her suffering, even if it meant killing the goddess Etro and dooming the world to destruction. And guess what? That's exactly what he did. How many people do you know that would tear the world apart, literally, for someone they love?
What a guy.
And that's why I like Caius. He's a relatable villain, even if he goes seriously overboard with his methods. But not only is he a sympathetic villain, he's also a gargantuan powerhouse, if the freaking sword he holds isn't proof enough of that. As an immortal man, he has eons of knowledge and battle experience, which he uses to his own benefit and in every single fight. He's equally as strong as lightning, maybe even more so. He can also perform an incarnate summoning, where he fuses himself with Bahamut, having full control of him. Furthermore, he seems to be emotionless, but that's not entirely true. He does this to make it harder for others to read him, so that he can exploit their weaknesses. Noel even considers him to be like the calm before the storm. But one fundamental thing about him grants him this position, and that is that after the final battle in Final Fantasy XIII-2, even after his own death, he freaking wins! The Heart of Chaos is destroyed, chaos seeps into every single timeline of the world, and everything goes to hell. Heck, it's even revealed in the effing secret ending that Caius didn't even die. This, ladies and gentlemen, is why Caius deserves to be here. This guy single-handedly did what most villains never achieve. In two simple words, he won. He achieved victory over our merry band of heroes, and that is what makes him a freaking awesome villain. Poor Caius. Such a well-written, interesting villain, yet why does he have to exist in such a shitty game? Oh, and for those who are wondering why I didn't mention Liam O'Brien, that's because I already did enough gushing over him in my double top 6 hottest male and female video game characters list. Oh, by the way, this is totally not a shameless self-advertising attempt on my part. No, what gave you that impression? No. Kuja is an interesting case. He always talks and behaves in such an aristocratic demeanor, putting an air of grace and sophistication. But that of course has no other purpose than to hide how ugly Kuja really is on the inside. I consider him to be one of the best developed villains among all major Final Fantasy villains. And that's because the little facade he pulls only progressively fades away as you near the end of the game, revealing his true narcissistic and cruel nature. Through certain story elements, we get to know that Kuja feels that he can only assert his existence and give it proper meaning by only reaching for unattainable heights. And this of course culminates at the epic showdown against him right before Necron decides to show up uninvited and decides he wants to be Final Fantasy IX's final boss, making players all over the world go, what the f***? In the advent of this fight, Kuja throws a temper tantrum and decides to obliterate all of existence because if I'm gonna die, I might as well take the goddamn world with me. Jeez! Lighten up, you nihilistic, selfish, and self-centered pretty boy. At heart, Kuja is nothing more than an angry child revolting against the world for not getting what he wants. Yet, you just can't help feel sorry for him. And his character development in Dissidia was pretty dang amazing, in my honest opinion. He deserved his own chapter just for that. All in all, he encompasses all major villain traits. And that's why he's so good. And bad. Alright, we're at the top 5, or as I like to call it, the big leagues. Otherwise known as the give credit where credit is due portion. And we start off with the power-hungry egomaniac that... Now hold on a second, that doesn't exactly narrow it down, now does it? Screw this build-up, it's Vayne Solidor from Final Fantasy XII. Vayne has a set of interesting, let's call them qualities. This royal prick is very much worthy of being called a master manipulator. You are almost never quite sure of his true motives, or if he's even evil. I'm serious, guys. There will be times when you genuinely believe this guy. There will be times where you'll believe this guy's rhetoric and his integrity. He's an expert politician and diplomat, and as rightfully appropriate for a politician, he lies, he schemes, and he backstabs his way into becoming ruler of Rabanastre. Vayne planned the entire scenario where a wounded soldier would serve as witness to Bosch seemingly murdering his own king, diverting the blame of the murder off the royal family. But of course, this elaborate setup is nothing more than pure theater. It's nothing but an elaborate ruse, passing on an air of a wise and passionate aristocrat, when all in all, he's nothing but a
Great big phony!
Now, if this were a best villains list, not to be confused with a favorites list, I'd certainly rank Vayne much higher. But since this is my personal favorite villains, he just barely makes the cut. Final Fantasy has rarely seen a villain as cunning, intelligent, and difficult to read as Vayne. And overlooked as he is by many, he well deserves his position in my list. Both Vayne and Seymour have much in common. Both commit acts of patricide, both project an image of being highly respectable, likable men in positions of enormous power and influence, and both go about using that same power and influence to serve their bloody schemes. Most people will hate Seymour, and rightfully so, but you know what?
I disagree!
I really like Seymour as a villain. Don't get me wrong, he's as evil as they come, and him being a villain is telegraphed the very moment he shows up on screen. He's so bad, I think Grumpy Cat might actually grow to like him. What? What? How did this get in here? Who the hell added this to my script? What the heck's up with this Grumpy Cat shit? Grumpy Cat isn't even funny. What gives? Ahem. As I was saying, Seymour's personality reveals him to be a true nihilist in the truest sense of the word. But like I said in my previous video, it takes a special kind of man to kill his own father and then take up his mantle to create a shitstorm of apocalyptic proportions. Yes, a very chilling kind of man. A man with a cold, cold heart.
Allow me to break the ice.
Amusing, Mr. Freeze. Now would you kindly take your frostbitten ass out of...
Alright, everyone, chill.
You were saying? At first, Seymour, with his soft-spoken, pristine Oxford Dawn voice, seems like the very image of a nice guy. But by the time we get to Macalania, we're exposed to his true and heartless nature. One of the reasons why I feel that Seymour trumps over villains like Vayne is because Seymour isn't afraid to dirty his own long-nailed hands. In fact, he often takes matters into his own hands when it comes to us or Yuna. And also, while Vayne has an image to maintain and he struggles to maintain it, once the cat is out of the bag with Seymour, he doesn't give a flying fornication anymore. And his backstory speaks more loudly than Vayne's ever could. As the offspring of a human and a Guado, he and his mother were exiled to Baj Temple. But his mother, in an attempt to strengthen the bonds and relations between the two people, turned to Yunalaska to make her into a Fate, so Seymour could use her Aeon and bring both people together. Needless to say that the whole thing kinda backfired, and the only thing it achieved was twisting Seymour's views on the world, on life and death, and on his own morality. Occasionally there are bosses who've been hyped to be extremely powerful, only for the battle to be disappointing. Then there are those bosses, the ones you think they are going to put up a decent fight, and they end up utterly destroying you. Ultimecia most definitely belongs in the latter. How would you react if you stood before an all-powerful witch who's destroyed most of the future to rule over it, that controls time, transfers her own consciousness to any other sorceress in the past so she can reach her rule beyond time and space, and who has the ability to manifest and give life to subconscious thoughts and inanimate objects? Me? I only have 4 words.
Holy shit, the magics!
Simply uttering Ultimecia's name out loud is cause enough to fill you with unparalleled terror. It's her looming, present, and all-powerful hand that keeps you on the edge and always on the move. And she knows how to really get into your mind. No, really, I mean this in a literal sense. She literally gets in your mind and uses your own thoughts against you. Case in point, Griever. You know, the so-called most powerful guardian force in existence. And just to be on the same page as you guys, this thing didn't even begin to exist until Ultimecia extracted the idea from Squall's head and used his perception of how Griever looks like to bring the beast to life and make it fight for her. And the final boss fight against her is freaking brutal. This bitch of a witch does not hold anything back. If a raining non-stop barrage of debuffs, flares, holies, meteors, and Ultima spells wasn't enough, she uses her own beefed up version of the Ultima spell known as the Apocalypse. Oh, look at me, I'm so original naming my spells. Ooh. And this little spell can practically one-shot your team into a permanent game over. And you know what? This isn't even the worst bit. She does all of these things while she draws your own magic out of existence. She just wipes your magic clean off the board, be it junctioned or not. Her fight is indeed one of the absolute best in the series, and she is truly the pinnacle of powerful mages. As an antagonist, Ultimecia is pretty wicked, but as a final boss, she's a flippin' nightmare. There's no better combination of words to describe Emperor Mateus than evil, genius, mastermind. And that he truly is. Now here is a man you do not want to trifle with. Never in my years have I seen such a keen and cunning mind such as the Emperor's. Every time you think you finally got him cornered, you've come to the painful and rather embarrassing realization that you've been checkmated 15 moves ago. I am not joking. This guy is so smart he can manipulate you to do more stupid shit than a drunken Steve-O. And believe me, that's saying a lot. Oh, and how could I forget his significance in Final Fantasy II? It's not like the guy planned for you to kill him just so he could conquer both heaven and hell in one fell swoop. If there ever were to be a god of schemers, plotters, and backstabbers all around, I think the Emperor here fit the part like a glove. He may be one serious megalomaniac, but at least he has the brains to make his delusions of power a reality. Even in this city, he was up to no good. Hell, in this city, he was even worse than in Final Fantasy II. Scheming and pulling everyone's strings along, waiting for Chaos and Cosmos to take each other out so that he could swoop in and take over. And he almost succeeded too. I wouldn't want to have a battle of wits with this guy. Trust me, I've had enough mind rapes for one lifetime. When it comes to the ultimate Final Fantasy villain, people usually go for one of two. Either Sephiroth or Kefka. And since you already knew who I was going to pick for the #1 spot from the very moment you clicked on this video, let's skip the build-up. Ladies and gentlemen, Kefka Palazzo. Other countdown makers like the Fiery Joker, the Autarch, and the Quarter Guy have already made a much better job of explaining why this guy is such a great villain. But I guess I'll need to at least gloss over what they've already covered to make a minimally convincing argument. But where do I even begin? And how can you even top someone like Kefka? Arguably, Kefka's biggest flaw as a character is the lack of backstory attributed to him. But you know what? I'm okay with this. I'm not so sure that I really want to know what led him to become such a demented, inhumane monster in the first place. Do you? The thing that makes Kefka stand out and stand above all other villains is that almost all of the other antagonists are motivated by self-interests, goals, thirst for power, or delusions of grandeur. Kefka, on the other hand, wants none of this. He just revels in the happiness that killing, destroying, and annihilating innocent lives gives him. In this sense, Kefka is much more primal, unapologetic, and unrefined compared to his other villainous companions. Hell, in Final Fantasy VI, he poisons an entire river just to kill the inhabitants of Cyan's hometown, and in the process, it's implied at least that he also kills some of his own troops. But do you think he cares? Does he feel the least bit of remorse? Fuck no! He laughs his freaking heart out! Ultimately, it's Kefka's very own nature that leads him to become the very embodiment of magic when he disrupts the statues of the goddesses of magic. That's right, kiddies. Not even at the midway point of the game, and Uncle Kefka here's already destroyed most of the world and now rules it as its twisted and sadistic overlord. He is one sick puppy. And to further develop Kefka as a villain and a character is the final battle against him and its theme, appropriately named Dancing Mad. Okay, and here comes the part where I have to do a lot of glossing over because I don't have the freaking patience to cover everything. So here it goes. Yada yada yada. Each phase illustrates a part of Kefka's fractured and damaged psyche. Yada yada yada. Yada yada. First phase in Kefka's primal need and desire for destruction. Second phase in Kefka's fractured mind and insanity. Third phase in his narcissistic nature and god complex. Finally, the last phase. At this point, Kefka realizes he's fighting a losing battle, and that he's about to be on the receiving end of the very destruction he loves so much.
Irony!
At this point, he doesn't even curse you when you finally beat him for good, and that silence of his, as you achieve victory, is deafening. And there you have it, folks. These have been my top 10 favorite villains in the entire Final Fantasy franchise. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you disagree with my picks, let me know in the comment section below. I want to know who your favorite villains are. And as always, this has been That Rusty Gamer, aka the Red Eye Hound, signing off till next week. Bye!
Car games on motorcycle. Final Fantasy on motorcycles.